This episode of Headlock Talk is brought to you by Austin-based company Naturally Hemp's and their new line of CBD gummies. These gummies are made with 100% baked-in, pharmaceutical-grade, non-isolate-based CBD. What we're talking about here is the entourage effect. The entourage effect refers to the stronger effect you get when combining multiple cannabinoids together, as opposed to just CBD. Full-spectrum CBD, or CBD distillate, tends to be more potent and lasts longer, which is what we're talking about here. Unlike some other brands that use a spray-on CBD, Naturally Hemp CBD distillate is baked in, so you know you're getting the full dose with each gummy. I personally use them for all kinds of things, like sleep aid or muscle pain. And did I mention they taste great? They got 5 flavors, strawberry, green apple, lemon lime, watermelon, and get this, the orange flavor has vitamin C in it. Ooh. So if this sounds like something you could go for, head over to your nearest Create a Sig vape shop and pick yours up today to see for yourself the difference Naturally Hemp's gummies can make in your life. On this episode of Headlock Talk, I am joined by a very special guest, my good friend, the one and only Fowl Original, as we discuss and look back on the very odd show that was Heroes of Wrestling. Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to yet another episode of Headlock Talk presents Wrestling Lore. I'm, of course, your hostess with the mostest, the Texas gentleman Tanner Pruitt, and along with me here, my good friend and co-host this week, the one, the only, the impeccable. Words can't describe how much this man means to the lore of Headlock Talk itself. Fowl Original.
Hello. How you doing?
Hello. Hello, Fowl.
That was a nice intro. And, you know, I'm eating a cookie at the moment. Some of you may or may not know. I'm eating a cookie, drink some coffee. But I would offer you a cookie for that.
Oh, well, thank you. I sincerely appreciate it. What kind of cookie would you offer? You got like a bag of them over there? Is that...
I don't buy cookies by the bag. Like, have you seen me? I have bought 5 bags. This cookie today is an oatmeal and raisin cookie from Asda, aka Walmart. As you can see, I've even put it on a plate for some people. I put it on a plate.
That's a rather large cookie. That's either a small plate or a large cookie. I can't tell, but that looks like a big cookie.
Bit of both.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Yeah. So, Fowl, what we're doing here today, oh my goodness. What we're doing here today is recounting a show that that me and Steven once reviewed before, way back in the day. Back when we were still on Brainbuster Radio. And just to put this into context, I've been a party to a lot of things that I've never wanted to be a part of. I've been to Magic the Gathering conventions. I've been to I've seen Les Mis 4 times in the movie theater when it came out.
At least you know the people, you could hear the people sing, so that's good.
Yes. I've seen all of the Hunger Games movies and the Divergent movies. Again, not willing to be a part of it. I've even listened to a Corey Feldman album, which I did not want to be a party to. But this Fowl, this might take the cake.
The cookie, even.
This might take the cookie.
You know what? Yeah, you told me to watch this show, and I've hated that I had to watch this show. Like, it's the thing is, it's not, and like, we'll dig into it, but It's a show that's very infamous for being really bad. But by making me watch it, I realized that there's some diamond in that rough.
That is one man's opinion, and I'm sure we will get right into that. Oh
Oh, goodness. So the year is 1999, Fowl, and one man.
Holy crap, did I go back in time?
Ooh, we're going back in time. The year is 1999, and there is the height of wrestling. WCW kicking ass in the ratings. WWE, WWF at the time, rather, kicking ass in the ratings. And there was a market for, maybe more wrestling. ECW was still a thing. ECW was doing great. So it was presented the idea to a gentleman by the name of Bill Stone, who ran a company called Foss Stone Productions, and I believe he's been since affiliated with CBS Sports. He was told at the time, there might be a market for some nostalgia in professional wrestling. Let's bring back the good times, the old stars from back in the day, from the 80s through the early 90s, and let's try and make a buck or two off of some vintage wrestling here, Fowl.
That's a fair enough point, isn't it? Like, nostalgia is normally good. Operating word there being normally.
Normally. So what Mr. Bill Stone set out to do at this point was devise a wrestling promotion that he would dub Heroes of Wrestling. And what he wanted to do with this here, Fowl, is he wanted to basically get a circuit of older wrestlers from back in the day and have them tour this circuit, doing shows and pay-per-views and just having a good old time, putting on some more conservative, family-oriented wrestling, right?
Yes.
Simply put, yes. So basically, we have the first show here of Heroes of Wrestling, October 10th, 1999, from the Casino Magic Hotel and Casino, because that's what Casino Magic is, right? Couldn't be just a hotel. It has to be also a casino.
But that's the magic trick, though, isn't it? It's like you go to Casino Magic, surprise is a hotel, and double surprise is a wrestling show. Right? Sure, there were a lot of surprised people that weekend.
Extra surprise for sure. This is the Casino Magic Hotel and Casino in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, which I didn't even know was a city until just a few years ago. Apparently, they had experienced a major flood just years prior to this. So this hotel is basically built upon a swamp. Allegedly.
Makes a lot of sense.
In my opinion.
I would have said some kind of ancient Indian burial ground from what ended up happening, but a swamp sounds just as plausible.
And we will understand why here shortly. The card, Fowl. The card was crazy built. We have this match, the super match of the super heavyweights. Yokozuna and King Kong Bundy was going to be the headliner. We had all these wrestlers from back in the day. Talk to me when you were watching this show for the first time here. You just got done watching it earlier today. Mm-hmm. The previews. What grabbed your eye, man?
So what's really interesting is I've seen bits of this show before, but as I said, this is the first time I've watched it the whole way through. Mm. And at the beginning of the show, it's 1999. Mm. So I'm watching the show and I'm like, okay, see King Kong Bundy. I'm like, okay, all right. Mm. People that grabbed my attention at the beginning, Sensational Sherry still looked sensational. And there was a certain point, though, where she was aligned because they kind of introduced some of the stories for the evening, to kind of give you a little bit of context of what's happening. And one of them was that George the Animal Steel had been taken under the wing and a little bit more of Sensational Sherry, and she's like, he's a killer. He's gonna beat everyone. And there's a point, yeah, when he walks backstage and she walks him into a dressing room and you see her bra because her top comes undone because obviously she's giving more than just career advice to George Animal Steel. But that's what kind of grabbed my attention. He's a hairy animal.
More ways than one.
I mean, have you seen what he does to turnbuckles? I mean, imagine that. Yeah. We talk about Batman around here. Yeah. So I was really impressed with the name value of some of the people that were there. And it looked like, from what they were building, a really good card. Heard names like Tuchel Scorpio, which I was like, at least we're going to have a good match here at some point. And like the Samoan Hit Squad, we heard that, who else was like, Captain Lou Albano was going to be there. Dutch Mantel was there. And it seemed classy. Seemed classy. Now, I was like, it's a pretty classy show.
Of course, and that was certainly the hope of you and I and the 2,000 people in attendance that went to this show in October 10th of 1999. However, what would proceed to happen is something that's been nearly universally acclaimed as the worst wrestling show of all time. Fowl, we'll get into it here in just a moment. We'll break down the matches. But is that a fair assessment? I mean, are people just being too harsh about this, or is there just maybe like this legend status about the show that just keeps being passed around of it being such a bad show?
I think it is a bit of both, and like I think mainly the legend grows because every time that someone talks about the show, it's kind of got that same feeling for me as like the plane ride from hell, where there are so many things which are still unknown. So many of those wrestlers that are no longer with us anymore to be able to tell those stories as well. And probably just the amount of like substances thrown around that weekend. Nobody's going to have like a decent recollection of that time anyway. So it just increases in legendary status. But for the worst show of all time, I would like to raise you the series of shows by 5 Star, which happened here in the United Kingdom, which were some of the most terrible shows I have ever sat through. Each of them were 3.5 hours long. I watched them live. So this is definitely, in of itself, the worst start to a promotion I've ever seen. And probably, it's not the worst show ever, though. Like, there are, as I said, there are some diamonds in the rough if you watch the show.
Okay. Well, we will go ahead and proceed into the card then, so that way we can really tell the listeners, our dear listeners, what our real thoughts are here, and maybe just maybe, because I will fully admit I was very I was very harsh on this show the first time that Steven and I reviewed it. That being said, some of those opinions are sticking around, but we'll see if anything changes here.
That is very true. That is very true. Some of it, and I'm not going to try and defend it. Some of it was terrible, but I think just bad. Like with you, I'll come back. I was like,
We get the opening of the show, and we were given I guess notice of the 2 commentators here for the show, Dutch Mantel and a gentleman by the name of Randy Rosenblum. Now, if that name, Randy Rosenblum, does not ring a bell to anybody out there, it would be for good reason. The original intent for this show was to have Gordon Soley actually do the commentary alongside Dutch Mantel, which may have saved part of the show at least. However, Gordon Soley developed throat cancer around the time and would later pass away due to such an illness. Instead, we bring in Randy Rosenblum, who does have some commentary experience, but I believe it was collegiate and high school football commentary experience. He had zero pro wrestling commentary experience here.
It's not, the thing is, that's not always a bad thing. And I mean, like, I'm gonna pull in someone from the past. Don West, thoughts go out to Don West. He had like no experience whatsoever, and that guy could sell you everything in that ring. And I think if this guy what's great about this commentator, Randy Rosenblum, is he was one of the highlights of the show. Like, he was trying to save it, and he had more power to save it than the people that were in the ring that have been doing it for like 20, 30 years. So really, really impressed with him.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely gave it his best try for sure. Part of it is he was handicapped by particularly agitated Dutch Mantel that night, who was very combative with him at times. So we got them running down the card. We get we're opening with the Samoan Hit Squad, or Samoan SWAT team rather. Oh, Samoan's Hit Squad. What am I talking
I don't know.
about?
Yeah, that would be better though.
That'd be a better name. Yeah.
Wait, so is that if we had some kind of like alternate universe where like the Hart Foundation teamed up with the Usos?
Boom.
Like, there you go, Samoan Hit Squad.
That'd be badass. So the Samoan SWAT team, Samu and the Samoan Savage, would come down to the ring with a gentleman by the name of Paul Adams, I believe was the gentleman's name. We actually don't get introduced to him, but that is the guy. The ring announcer obviously kicks off the show saying that tonight somebody's going to get their ass whooped tonight. Very exaggerated. Got a little bit of pyro. Fowl, big pyro show. Yeah.
Dude, there was pyro all over the shop. That's why I was like, at home, if you were watching that live, you must have been like, this is impressive.
Yeah.
No, it would have been, the first bit when you're watching it, because like there's something, obviously you're talking about commentary. They put an opening graphic up at the beginning as well, in memory of Gorilla Monsoon. So it had a lot of like real feel to it, like, so it felt like a real wrestling show, and except for all the wrestling, but it was definitely anyway.
I believe this gentleman Paul Adams, he makes his way down to the ring. He introduces the Samoan SWAT team. He says, he refers to himself. He never actually says what his name is. He just refers to himself as Self multiple times through this promo, talking about how he was thinking to himself, self, how do I manage this career here, this newfound career I have in this burgeoning wrestling promotion, and he wants to go right to the top of the food chain, and he of course wants to manage the Samoan SWAT team. He says that the next I guess whoever the opponents are tonight, they would need a 12-pack of liquid courage to take on the Samoan SWAT team. And unfortunately, ironically enough, they invite out Marty Jannetty. Allegedly, I mean, just one man's opinion. Marty Jannetty is also accompanied by Tommy Rogers, who is his tag team partner tonight. This match here, Fowl. Opening match for Heroes of Wrestling.
Dude, I like this match. This is what I'm saying, yeah. I really liked this match. And I went into this event very low expectations. So you watch that first match, and it's one of those matches for this particular show, which I'm going to call the false sense of security matches, because there's loads of matches during the show where you're like, oh, they know what they're doing. Then something will happen. This match, they knew what they were doing. Marty Jannetty was quite good at that. There was a point when they kind of like kept the camera on Marty while he was talking to Tommy about something. I don't know what that was about. They're having like a proper little natter, and then got up, but that was quite interesting. But it was a good match. And if you wanted to see wrestlers from that time period, and you wanted to see wrestlers that could still go, those guys could still go. And that, as you know, and obviously pay-per-views over in the US and like over in the UK as well, they used to have that 15 minutes of like free, didn't they? So this would have fallen into that 15 minutes of free time. And if you were kind of watching, you'd be like, oh, sounded like this was going to be a terrible show, but actually this is all right. I might bite sucker. But every time, that's what but I really liked it. Yeah.
It's ordered. The one takeaway that outside of the action that I will present to you here is of course Randy Rosenblum, who we just talked about. He's kind of warming up, going through the motions, just trying to get into the wrestling match. And he's calling these moves like an arm drag, right? He calls the arm drag a reversal and slam takedown. That's a new one for me, Fowl.
You know what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about it though. Maybe he was trying to coin some phrases. Maybe he was.
Perhaps so. Perhaps so. He also calls the drop kick a flying leg kick.
Well, that's exactly what it is, though, isn't it?
Of course. How could I be so wrong? This, of course, catches the fury of Dutch Mantel at ringside. He keeps shouting in Randy Rosenblum that it's an arm drag. It's called an arm drag. We get this finish here, which is a Samoan drop to a cutter, which actually looked pretty nice, pretty good. Yeah. Mantell reminds us that you don't have to be a brain scientist to understand how that works, as far as passing out to that finish. Yeah.
I guess that was him like just ripping on like Blumenthal as well. You don't have to be a brain scientist to know what that is.
just staring directly at Rosenblum. You don't have to be a brain scientist.
Because he's wearing sunglasses, like he's in full Dutch Mantel like attire, like the full like Lemmy. I don't look at the Lemmy, and he's just looking at him like, "I will kill you" outside, but he's saying it under his beard like the whole time.
You can't see his lips moving because his mustache is too big.
Exactly.
Oh goodness. After this match here, Fowl, we're taken to backstage where we're shown some footage. Lost footage, perhaps. I don't know. But it's of George the Animal Steel arriving to a hotel with Sensational Sherry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. But I didn't realize it was a hotel. I thought they were just backstage. And I was like, oh, interesting.
I mean, perhaps so. Considering what's about to happen, I would hope it's at least at a hotel.
Dude, the whole show was coming from a hotel. The core was coming from inside the house. Didn't even think about it.
Who'd have thunk it? They are very friendly with one another, Miss Sensational Sherry and George Animal Steel.
All the hairs were standing up on his body. He looked really excited.
All of them. At first glance, it's kind of worrying for me because George the Animal Steel, he looks older. He looks like he's getting up there in age, and Sensational Sherry looks like she's like a caregiver of sorts, like a nurse type. Who's just like, come on this way, George. You know, it's okay. But then she keeps playing with her dress. I'm like, what are you doing with your dress right there? And they wander into a room, but as they're going into this room, I think either Sherry or George, I'm not sure. All I know is that dress came off, and they wander into a room and shut the door.
But just as you said that kind of puts that whole scene to a different context. Because if you just put over the top of it, no, George, what are you doing? George, you need to come back here. George, it's 4 p.m. George, your medic. Then it just changes that whole scene. George, what are you saying? I think he's saying I like lasagna.
Oh god. Sherry then cuts a promo. I assume hours after what happened in this hotel room, where she's wearing maybe not. She's wearing a very similar dress as to what she had just worn that got taken off, and she cuts a promo about Greg the Hammer Valentine, and George just busts out of nowhere, and he's just like, fight, let's go fight, and he's all ramped up and ready to go. So yeah, Sherry has to lead him to the ring, I guess. That's what happened.
What's really interesting about it, though, and what I liked is that it was probably one of the best storyline angles in the show, because we got the storyline, we got the angle, we got a little bit of a build, and then we got a conclusion with, so
we did get, in fact, a whole story in this
whole arc
segment. Yes. Let me see here. Greg the Hammer Valentine makes his way to the ring first, and he gives us basically kind of a history lesson, if you will, of the history with him and George the Animal Steel, and his family, right? Valentine then says that he's going to make George, quote, lay down and die tonight, which was a little bit grim, and that Sherry is coming home with him tonight, which also is a little bit grim.
Well, I guess if she's some kind of caregiver, I'm assuming she has multiple clients, just in case. You gotta, just in case at that age, you gotta keep your options open.
Yeah, you don't get paid by the hour.
Caregiver.
Yeah,
maybe you do. I don't know. Anyway, no, I don't think that was her gimmick. That was Sean's gimmick.
So George the Animal Steel versus Greg the Hammer Valentine. This is a fairly short match. Basically, the story here is that when George's shirt is pulled over his head, Sherry is the one that starts attacking him, and George didn't know. Right, this is very sad. At one point,
dude, I was like, "That's real bad at it." I was like, "Oh, look, she took him upstairs,
and took care of him in whatever way."
Then took care of him. It's like it's not nice, is it?
No. Finally, George is able to see past this here, and in my original show notes from 2 or 3 years ago, George finally takes off his shirt to reveal that he's actually part lowland gorilla, and then attacks Greg the Hammer Valentine. A fork is then used. Maybe it was like a fork or something. There was something in Greg the Hammer Valentine's tights.
That was so weird. Yeah, can we just take a second for that? Because I was watching the show, and I've seen it a few times, and there's just this point of the show. Now, they're quite old gentlemen. Yeah. And there's this point in the show where they're just like, look what's hanging out of Greg. I was like, oh no, what is it? What is it? Like, what is it? Like, at that age, there's a few things it could be. It's not going to be a weapon. It's going to be a reservoir, more than likely. And I was like, oh my god, so that's what I thought he was attacked with. Poo bag. But obviously it wasn't.
It was at least a pointed object that was used to then attack George the Animal Steel. The finish is when Sensational Sherry actually hits George with a chair, and then Valentine gets the pin here. This match sucked, Fowl. This match sucked. Dude,
shut up, man. Like, she had a so did you? I think the match, the build for the match was fantastic.
10 stars. 10 stars for the build for the match.
10 stars. Exactly. 10 stars build. The match was all right, but it told a story. It wasn't okay, it wasn't great whatsoever, but the end of the match is what I thought was really great. And this is what I'm saying is like, if you were watching that as a fan of either Greg the Hammer Valentine, of George Animal Steel or Greg the Hammer Valentine, and you were like, oh my god, like they've had a match.
Yeah.
A conclusion to the match has happened using something that we remember for the old days, and Sensational Sherry. I don't want to say the phrase because it sounds sexist, but she went ass over tit, over the top. Yeah, and and that was a pretty big bump as well. She's quite the tall lady, so I didn't realize it was straight over. And then that's when the crowd and even commentary were a bit like, "Oh, we're really behind George. Oh no, he attacked a woman."
Now this feels like a problem.
Yeah, now this is right. And that was actually very interesting later on during the show because there's a point. I think Dutch Mantel says, like, one of the commentary says something about sexuality, and then they pull it back. And I'm sure it's like, you can't assault someone's sexuality. They're like, that's very correct. I remember just hearing that partway through the show, and I was like, what has happened? Like, this is 1999. Did they go too far?
Yes, I know the part that you're talking about, and we will get to that here very soon. We get some technical difficulties backstage. We get a comically intense promo from I want to say a debuting Julio Fantastico, who he's very confident here, Fowl. He's saying that he's going to this match against Too Cold Scorpio, and that he's never going to lose a wrestling match again.
You know what? This whole show reminded me of, like in very small ways, the first TNA show, where you'd had people on there that were like, "I'm the best. I'm the best ever," and it's like, you, my friend, were the cheapest person. There's nothing to say anything bad about you, but all the name value can't really do it anymore. So of course you're going to do well because you're going to be one of the shining stars. Unfortunately, this person hitched their wagon to the wrong wagon. Yeah. Well, they hitched themselves to a wagon, and that's probably the most apt way to speak about this. But like, he looked good, and I was quite excited for his match against Too Cold Scorpio because I'm a big fan of Too Cold Scorpio, and I thought, well, at least we're going to get like a high flying style match. Bearing in mind, I kind of figured that a lot of those guys couldn't get their feet to the ring, so I was like, that's gonna be quite interesting.
And that definitely seems to be the thought here from what I've researched, is that they felt collectively, I guess Bill Stone and whoever else was behind the production of this, that they needed a fast-paced match considering all of the other talent that was on the card, and they certainly went out of their way to get Too Cold Scorpio and Julio Fantastico here, which good for them. You did it, boys. You did it. Too Cold Scorpio actually comes to the ring with a replica WCW Heavyweight Championship belt, which, of course, he was not the World Heavyweight Champion at the time, Fowl. Not quite sure what he was doing, but maybe they wanted to project this image that he was the champion. I don't know.
To be honest, yeah. Maybe he just stole it from WCW. Maybe they just gave it to him on his way out. Like they just went, "Here you go. Here's a title. I've won the title. No, but take this with you. We can't afford to pay you."
He got in a luggage mix up with Goldberg at an airport and like took Goldberg's bag and then like ended up with the belt.
You know why that was probably why, because it was at the airport and someone shouted "You're next" and Goldberg flipped out and just left.
Punched a window at the airport.
I'm not the one that's next. You're the one that's next.
You're next. Oh God. We are also joined on at the commentary booth by Captain Lou Albano, who he's very loud, Fowl. He's
very emotional as well.
Very emotional.
Very like
lots of passion.
Yeah, like his promos, like when he was doing them, like I think they did a promo backstage. Like he got to a certain point in the promo when you could tell that he was like, "Uh-oh, I don't know what to do anymore." But I'm just going to keep saying things that I've said in the past louder. Like, I don't know about the sweet to be sour to be power down, Miss Tweet. And I was like, "Oh my god, he's running out of stuff to say, isn't he?" Oh no. But he was very good in this segment. I liked. You're obviously going to mention the announcement that was made for this burgeoning promotion that they were going to have a brand new. What was his title? It's general
commissioner.
So they're going to have a commissioner that looks like Mick Foley does now. And he took it like looking at Lou Albano. That was like the biggest like thing he'd ever got in his whole career. That was like his crowning glory. The way he was talking about it, like he was getting choked up. You could see, and like Dutch was obviously like laughing his ass off underneath his sunglasses, and like you could tell like he was like, "Oh my god, like I'm going to be back in the business." And I think for someone like Lou Albano, it probably was like truly meant something that he could give something back to professional wrestling, especially in '99 when there probably wasn't a place for him. But he was very loud.
Yes. That in combination with Dutch Mantel, who also tends to be quite loud, you end up getting something here at the commentary booth, which is like two older gentlemen who are like do you ever like use closed captions when you're watching TV and just says like indecipherable? Like it was just like that. Like it would just be like that the entire match. Indecipherable commentary.
Yeah, it's because they're trying to get themselves over, because they're like, "Oh, people are obviously here. Let's get ourselves over." Because it would have been during that time as well, '99. Like, get ourselves over.
That's what the business was for them, you know. It's absolutely right. This clearly here, but Julio Fantastico and Too Cold Scorpio, in my opinion, is the best match on the card.
Isn't it though?
By a pretty far distance, very far margin. We do have the occasional mix up here with Rosenblum calling Too Cold Scorpio. He calls him Too Cold Scorco at times. He also calls him randomly the Dragon in the middle of the match. He starts calling him the Dragon, and nobody knows who he's talking about. And then you're like, oh, he's talking about Scorpio. I don't know why, but
I'm not thinking maybe it is just because it was like he doesn't know any of these people. He's like, that guy's called Too Cold Scorpio. I'm guessing he's some kind of kung fu guy. All right, let's just.
He's the
dragon.
A lot of this match had brawling from the outside. And then when it gets back into the ring for the finish, Scorpio hits his finisher twice, and on the second one, it almost decapitates Julio Fantastico. It was a very rough finish.
But you know, he was. You could tell that he was being positioned as like a top. He had to take the finish twice.
Yeah.
From Nostalgia Act. If you got to take the finish twice from a Nostalgia Act, they're putting the rocket on your back. But unfortunately, in this case, there was no fuel in the rocket or even a rocket.
He earned that replica World Heavyweight Championship belt, pal. He earned that one.
Wait, if he lost the match, did he have to give it to Julio Fantastico?
He just presents it to him like Hogan at WrestleMania 6.
And holds up his arm at the same time as like, we did it together. We did it together.
Points at Fantastico. This guy. It is then revealed post-match that none other than Captain Lou Albano, as you had said earlier, Fowl, that he is revealed as the official commissioner of the Heroes of Wrestling. He starts getting very emotional. He starts crying. I start crying, but for different reasons. Very, very emotional moment for Captain Lou for sure. Um, we are then cut backstage here. King Kong Bundy cuts a promo on Yokozuna. Yeah, it's fine. He talks about how he's a big man. Yokozuna's a big man. Big man match, main event. The next match, Fowl. The next match here on this card, I'm rubbing my face
because I go to my notes because
Yeah.
this is where I started taking like really detailed notes. Because at this point I was like, "Oh my god, let me find." Because up until this point, I was like, "It's
fine."
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm not offended. Like, not like I was offended. But I was like, I don't feel like people. I was like, I feel like people have pooped on this too much. I was like, and they've just given it a bad rap, and it's not that bad, and la 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 la. Yeah. Then this next match, and this is the match we're talking about. Is it the the Sheik and Volkov?
Yes. The Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov versus the men from down under, Luke and Butch. This match has been widely acclaimed by many outlets as the worst wrestling match in the history of wrestling by a pretty sizable distance. And yeah,
I would agree wholeheartedly. It's there's so much going on in this match. Like, like as we were talking about earlier on, everyone trying to get themselves over. Every single person is like, because I guess in their minds, every single person is a massive main event draw and was at one point. So they're pulling the main event stuff out. And people okay. So like I noticed something, for example, Nikolai Volkov, he used to go to the top rope and wave the flag. That's his deal.
Mm-hmm.
It seems as if he can't get up there anymore. That's fine because he's coming up in age. So they had some random guy dressed up as like a Russian like one of the guys from the Kremlin, like proper US stuff. And then he went up and did it. And then he came back down, and I looked at and obviously the camera had gone away and come back. And I looked at Iron Sheik and I was like, who the hell's that guy? I was like, Volkov looks different. It's because Volkov had obviously got to take a seat somewhere while Iron Sheik was doing his stuff. And it was just so weird. But the gimmick battle royale at that WrestleMania when they all came out and did their stuff? That's what it felt like. But if it was being taken legitimately and they were expecting people to go, wow.
God damn.
God, Iron Sheik never lost it. Like, what? There's that thing that he did. Okay, so still, people are listening here. You need to explain to me because I don't really understand it. This is the Olympics thing, but there was a point in the match when there's these two sticks on the ground and he's just standing at the sticks. I thought that he was building like a little platform and he was going to stand on it and he's going to be like on the because he won Olympic stuff.
Yeah.
No. He picks up what looked like, and then he was trying to pick them up, and I was like, even when he's picking them up, they looked like they were made of like polystyrene, like foam. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he picks them up, and then he starts swinging them around his back.
Yeah.
What's that for? Who's that for?
So, from my understanding, this is something that he's been he had done for a long time previously. This is an exercise from what I'm understanding here. From him, according to the Iron Sheik, this is an Iranian exercise that's good for your back and your shoulder muscles. Really, what this looks like to me is a good way to definitely shred your shoulder muscles, like to the point of tears and injuries. But of course, he must have some kind of element of control that I'm not aware of.
Well, I think at the time he was surviving on this special potion powder that you could ingest, and it would probably helped him to not feel any of that pain for a long time.
It's perhaps true, allegedly.
Call it Splenda.
Splenda. So let me walk you through this here real quick. Luke and Butch, the men from down under, are very over. They're very popular with the crowd. The Iron Sheik can barely walk. All right, barely. Lots of USA chants when Sheik and Volkov come out. And we are then treated to a special a cappella version, Fowl, of the old Soviet national anthem. Even commentary, who had been inept, to say the least, to this point, does chime in saying that they thought the Cold War was over, and yes, it had been over for at least 10 years at that point.
It's like there were kids in that crowd that do not know what the Cold War was, have no idea what it is, because it didn't exist in their lifetime. And they're like, I see this guy up there singing a beautiful Russian song. I don't know what it's about, but maybe I want to join in.
Yeah. You got very little kids singing the Soviet national anthem.
Exactly. That's how they got into the US. That's how they did it. That's how communism came back, thanks to this show. That's what happened. You see sales of the Communist Manifesto just skyrocketing in St. Louis Bay, Mississippi in 1999. People waited outside the arena with sickles and hammers, like, for different reasons, but still.
I thought you were going to say people waiting outside of a Barnes & Noble. Oh, God. Let's see here. So we're getting lots of we get the Iranian weight demonstration from Iron Sheik, which I've noted looks very unsafe, especially for a man in his age and condition. I also found a lot of irony in that there was a lot of USA chants here, Fowl. This is very unusual considering that there's no participant in this match who is actually American.
You find it really interesting as well that for the majority of the night, the crowd were like whispers, no noise. The second these guys all come out, USA, USA, USA.
Oh man, this was a wild match. We get the Sheik. The Sheik tries to stay on the apron here as Volkov tries to get some kicks in. There's no, like I said, there's no Americans in the match. Sheik comes in the ring to make a distraction here, but he can barely move, so he actually uses the referee to move himself around in the ring a little bit. This match it looks very soft, and we were actually demonstrated that Nikolai Volkov gives perhaps the softest, worst looking backbreaker in the history of professional wrestling right here in this match.
But yeah, there have been worse like moves done on elderly wrestlers, like when Undertaker did the choke slam to Hogan way back when he was undisputed champion to take the championship off him in WWE, and he goes the whole way and he just gently lays him down, like taps him on the shoulder, and then goes down to pin him. I'm like, jeez, man, he's only Hulk Hogan. Like, he can't do anything now. You've outlasted him. Like, it's fine. You're immortal. You don't need to do that.
This was very much the same in that Volkov was basically laying this man down like a child getting ready to go to bed, and just like, tucked him in with the
below on his stomach.
Gave him a raspberry. The match got really weird. Yeah, no, that didn't actually happen, folks. One of the Bushwhackers gets the pin, and eventually, and thankfully, it's over. This match was chaos. This match was. If you go out of your way to see this show, folks, at least stick around to see this match because it's well worth your time.
This match has everything. This match is a really good microcosm of what Heroes of Wrestling is, because everything else is quite like extreme, to the sense of like, it's not necessarily the fault of the people who booked it, it's the fault of the talent. In this case, the talent were probably like, we can't really work a match, but we've been booked to do it, so let's give it a try. that's the level of what you would have got from this show. And if it had just been like that the whole way through, then people would have been like, it's a nostalgia show. They're a bit old and whatever. But instead, they're like, no, this is going to be a promotion. This is like the standard of what you are going to see if you watch the next show. And that's why it shocks the hell out of me, because I'm like, you put your best foot forward. You don't go, cool, we'll get Sheik out there and play like Weekend at Bernie's with the ref. Like, what the hell, man? Like, it's just
Weekend at Bernie's with the ref.
It's just crazy. It's crazy.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because not ironically, but realistically, Sheik was not going to do anything in this match, considering his shape and condition. He actually did nothing. He didn't actually even participate in this match, besides
did the exercises,
work, and the and the occasional distraction. He then blames Nikolai Volkov for the loss after the match, ironically. And they then decide ultimately to hug it out, make up for the loss. So I guess they kind of turned face at the end. I'm not really sure. This match was disgraceful, Fowl.
Yeah, and it goes back to that time period, and I think this is what's interesting now with like AEW and the way that Tony is it has always been a joke that wrestling fans, the ones that become like owners of promotions and stuff, is that they go back to those wrestlers that were their heroes when they were a kid. So this isn't heroes of wrestling for a generation. These are the heroes of wrestling for the booker. Is Bill Stone for the booker? These are his personal heroes. So you can't say to him, you've booked Sheik, but he can't do anything. Oh no, he will. You don't know my Sheik. And that's the problem with it. But with TK, like, obviously he's like, I will book these people. I will buy Sting. Well, not buy. Yeah. I'll sign him. And then I'll put him in things. Yeah, exactly. And then I'll put him into like matches where he gets to do the stuff, but he also, I understand the limits that he has. He's not exactly going to Sting. Yo, Sting, do you want to jump into like a 6-man? Like, obviously he was in a 6-man. Do you want to jump into like a 6-man TNT title match involving the majority of the high flyers from the division?
Yeah,
he probably want to do it.
Yeah,
but
you don't see him taking like a snap dragon suplex from Kenny Omega on the apron. Yeah.
Oh no, but I kind of do. But that would be something that he would do way down the line. It's not something you're going to see every week, because you know the limit. But if you've got someone that can't even move in the ring, and you're asking them to get to the ring, I mean, that's why WCW had a raised ring, in my opinion. Anyway, that's why TNA had a raised ring for so long, because they had talent that was so old that they couldn't actually even get into the ring. So they were like, "Cool, we're going to give you a lift the whole way down." And that's the problem, is like Sheik's getting there and he's struggling getting up there because he's an older gentleman. He's an old guy in it. And Volkov can't even climb the ropes anymore. So it's like, what are you doing with this? I would love to see them, and I could already see it. Yeah. They would be like the first tag team champions of this promotion if it ever went on.
They would lose the titles, get mad, hug each other, hug it out, and then go back and win it wouldn't even like they wouldn't even go back and win the titles. They would just be given the titles again, like nothing ever happened.
and then Iron Sheik would do that weird thing, but we do it with the 2 belts.
That would be brilliant. We then get footage from earlier in the day of Stan Lane actually attacking Tully Blanchard while Blanchard was cutting a promo, and he throws them in the back of a car, and Tully actually cuts upon getting out of the back of this car. He cuts a really good promo, a really intense promo, saying that he's getting flashbacks of when he was in his prime with the 4 Horsemen, and it's this really good promo. It's actually probably the best thing on this show, like quality wise.
I would totally agree. That's what I'm saying about this show is there's parts in the show where you can see where they were going with it and like where it could have gone, but there were a lot of people out for themselves. But that promo, like, it built the match for me, and it felt old school. And I'm sure that there were a lot of people that were watching that were really appreciative of that over the majority of what had already happened. So I would have kept them in there.
Yeah, no, it was a great promo. We are then treated to the match: Stan Lane versus Tully Blanchard. Stan Lane actually comes out first, and he's clearly offended by the ring announcer's, I guess, his announcing job, perhaps. So he takes the mic, and apparently Stan Lane had been, I don't know, taking classes or just like watching Michael Buffer clips on VHS. I don't know what he was doing, but he apparently learned how to do his own ring announce work, and very very interesting.
Very ahead of his time.
Very ahead of his time.
A young Ken Anderson was watching this show and just knew what he was going to do.
Exactly. He does announce himself with the moniker "the original gangsta of love." I'm not sure what that means.
What is a gangster of love? Is that like a Casanova, a Lothario of some kind? Is that just a cheater?
but he's also a gangster, so he's got to have some street credibility to him, At least at least maybe, I don't know.
I'm guessing he wears a bandana when he goes out on dates.
He goes on dates with 5 women at a time wearing a bandana.
Yeah. Like, are you in the Bloods of the Crips? Ooh, I'm in neither. I'm in the Paisleys.
Yeah. He's got like ripped jeans, but it's just like one rip across the knee. And he's like, gangster of love.
Surgical precision. Made sure all of the phrase have gone away. I might be a gangster, but I know how to dress.
Got to be fashionable. The commentary team talks about how the crowd is mesmerized by this beautiful man that's in the ring, Stan Lane. But when the camera pans to the crowd, they're either bored or looking away.
Why did they keep panning to the crowd? Because they weren't going to get anything from that. Like, every single time they look to the crowd, and the crowd are like, why are we here? Like, every single one of them, they're like, I hope they didn't pay to get in there. Like, because...
Yeah, I don't know. This match was fine. It definitely did not, in my opinion, live up to the Tully Blanchard promo. But I think that maybe just lives up to how good of a promo Tully Blanchard is. Stan Lane thinks that he had won the match after a back body drop pin combo. But the referee reverses the decision and says both men's shoulders were down until Tully got them up before the 3 count, leaving the crowd quite confused as to what happened in the match.
More confused than they already were.
I mean, they had just seen a relic of the Cold War, in the match prior to this. I'd be quite confused as well.
I don't know. There's probably kids outside trying to do the chic like thing, and injuring themselves.
That would actually make for a really good piece of merch. Like in today's world, that would be a really like best-selling piece of merch is the Iron Sheik Iranian weight training set.
It wouldn't be called that. It would be called the F Your Fat kit, wouldn't it? Well, that's, we'd have to call it that. Like, what's it? F the fat.
Oh my god! So that's a free marketing idea out there for you, Mr. Sheik. If you're listening, you need to sell those, brand them, and sell them.
Cheeky baby Jim.
Instead of like a Bowflex or like a whole gym set thing, it's just these two. It's a picture of these two weights.
Pretty strong, baby. Shiki Pepe Gym. This baby number one, other baby Patui.
Only equipment I ever use.
Since I'm baby to a man.
Oh my god. We're then taken backstage where we're having yet again technical difficulties. Backstage. We do have Jim the Anvil Neidhart taking a promo, doing a promo. I don't know where I was going with that. Doing a promo in the back. He's saying that he does not want giraffes or rhinoceroses, nor does he want any pythons. There you go. King Kong Bundy then interrupts Jim the Anvil Neidhart and says, no need to worry, that they will take care of that. I guess Jim is concerned about his match with Jake the Snake later.
Mm-hmm. And he should be.
And we will soon find out that he very well should be. This next match on the card, Fowl, I don't know why they decided to go with this match. I don't know why it was booked here. It seems really out of place compared to the other ones. One Man Gang takes on Abdullah the Butcher. Yeah.
Okay. What was this? Yeah. Okay. So when I first started watching wrestling on the internet, it's like properly starting to find other stuff. Mm-hmm. It was probably like 2001-ish. And I went back and I watched a bunch of stuff and I saw Abdullah the Butcher. And I think a few years later, a documentary came out about him because of the issue he had with his blood. And there was a wrestler that was suing him and there was all that stuff happening. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I was watching this match and I was like, going back to there being a lot of children in the arena, going back to there being a lot of like old school wrestling fans, going back to this is going to be a touring promotion, apparently. You've got Abdullah the Butcher going up against One Man Gang in what is a lot of people would say precursors of what the death matches are now, which is they were having a match where they just Abdullah bladed himself as many times as he could with a fork and just bled everywhere, and they built it up like on commentary. They were like, oh, this guy's like they've poured buckets of blood all over the years. They've bled for this industry, and I'm like, yeah, but don't bleed tonight. You don't need to bleed tonight. Like, fine.
There's no reason to. You're okay. You don't have to do this.
Cool, and it's like there's a bit in Mick Foley's first autobiography, Have a Nice Day, where they talk about him and Al Snow, and they used to bust each other open all the time, like above the eyebrow. They'd be at like a barbecue or something, and they'd be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And they just punch each other in the eyebrow, because if you hit each other just there, it doesn't hurt, but it just gushes blood. And I was thinking, Abdullah, mate, go hang out with Al Snow. Like, he'll get barbecue with you as well. Like, you won't just do this.
Well, and Abdullah the Butcher would later go on to open up a chain of barbecue restaurants.
Arteries, veins,
barbecue restaurants. Yeah, I think it was like Abdullah's Ribs. I think it was the name of the barbecue chain.
I mean, it's smart though, because you just have like various states of Abdullah. How would you like your steak today? Oh, I'd like it Heroes of Wrestling style, please. Yeah. Like, what? Oh, terrible and underdone.
Oh no! Just don't try the sauce. You don't want to try the sauce at the Abdullah the Butcher's rib shop.
Well, let's just say Abdullah puts a little bit of himself into every meal. I just allegedly, I don't know
allegedly.
that. Hopefully the restaurant's closed. Not because of that. It's supposed to be different reasons. I do that. Like going again, but about the kids thing, and you talking about people in the crowd being bored. Like, this was one of those points in the match, in the night, where if I was a parent, number one, well, I brought him there, I'm not really responsible. But if I was a parent, I would have been like, kids, I know that you desperately want to see you desperately want to see the main events. You desperately want to see King Kong Bundy go up against Yokozuna. Like, you've been talking about it the whole car ride here.
Yeah.
But I think this is the point where we need to leave.
Yes. This is oof. One man gang opens the match by attacking Abdullah with the chain, right? And Abdullah is just busted open right away. Like, there's like, and then there's no saving this after that. He gets hit with a chair and then thrown into a ring post. Abdullah's just like, it's a massacre. And from what I've read about the event and from people who attended and were on production and everything, they originally intended, they wanted Abdullah to bleed, but just a little bit. They didn't want him to bleed a lot. Abdullah does not do like a little bit of bleeding. I've never seen an Abdullah the Butcher match where he's just like, I'm just gonna bleed a little bit.
Yeah,
like,
but did you see that match when he? Yeah, but did you see that match when he got a paper cut? Oh shit! Man.
Oh. Abdullah the Butcher versus the Paper Airplane. Wonderful match, classic.
Exactly. Office match. But stapler. At least the stapler was at home. But you know what? Like, I think that the really annoying thing about Abdullah is, as you said, and it's not his fault, but people coming to see him bleed. They're not coming to see him, like, if they are coming to see him at all. But if they're coming to see him, they're coming to see the Abdullah that's going to leave a stain on the floor that you can never get rid of. That's what they want, yeah? They don't want him to come out and just, like, what is an Abdullah the Butcher match other than quite a vicious, barbaric thing? It's like telling New Jack, go out there and just turn it down. Like, they go do a 4.
Yeah.
You do a 4 for us.
Yeah.
And he's
I understand you're at like a 7 or an 8, but we need you at like a 2 or a 3. Yeah.
And he's like, I will add 2 or 3 to the 7 I'm on right now. And I'll see what
bringing this to a 10. Abdullah does make a comeback in the match, but not in the way that you would expect. Rather than it being like a moment like Hulk Hogan hulking up or Ultimate Warrior shaking the ropes, Abdullah hulks up and makes his comeback by starting to lick his own blood, which is gruesome. And at that point, he starts attacking One Man Gang with a fork. Both men are bleeding quite a bit. I'll say this. This is I think you hit the nail on the head perfectly. This is very much proto deathmatch style wrestling. If you're a fan of like old CZW stuff or like GCW, perhaps, you're probably gonna be fine watching this one. But there's some aspects of Abdullah which is like what? If you
sometimes the buffet of like wrestling can have something on there that's a bit too spicy for everyone. This is one of those dishes which people went to the buffet and they're like, what's that? And they're like, you don't want that. No one eats that. Oh, but we'll force you to put some on your plate because that's the buffet of wrestling.
See, like, this had a tad bit too much cumin and ghost pepper. Yeah, perhaps.
Muy caliente.
Muy caliente.
Muy caliente. Oui.
So yeah, if your exposure to like this style of wrestling is like John Moxley and Kenny Omega or John Moxley and Joey Janela and then those lights out matches in AEW, this is going to be a bit of a turning point in your life as a wrestling fan. So I'm just giving you fair warning now. The match ends as they call off the match, seemingly because allegedly production found this to be far too gruesome for pay-per-view. And they had security escort the two men to the back as they continued to fight. Abdullah at one point then gives the fork that he used on One Man Gang. He gives the fork to a fan, and then the two fans that were next to him high-five him, which I found to be hilarious.
But That's what I mean, yeah? It's like, there's probably people in that crowd that were like, yo, this is really good. And like, even the finish to the match, like, it's a smart finish when you think about it. It's like, it's too gruesome. Yeah, it is. You're watching it, you're like, shit, no, that is too gruesome. But they ain't just going to finish. They're going to keep fighting to the back until one of these men is dead. Like, you won't get to see that. But before we leave, here, Fad, have this fork. I've got 25 more. Like, in my bag.
It's littered in Hep C. Yeah,
exactly. That kid. You know what the worst thing is that's the kind of shit that, like, when you were a kid, if you were given something by a celebrity, like, you wouldn't wash it, would you, or do anything with it? Oh my god, that kid ate their lunch that day with that same fork. Mommy, what's all this? Oh no.
You have to put it in a special box, just on its own, away from everything else. Like,
yeah, it says medical waste on it.
Or just turn it in directly to the CDC. Just be like, can you keep this for safekeeping? After this match, we get what was termed the ultimate grudge match here, Fowl. The ultimate grudge match between Cowboy Bob Orton and Superfly Jimmy Snuka. Now, watching this match is slightly problematic for a lot of reasons, especially if you are aware of the allegations that were made against Jimmy Snuka towards the end of his life and throughout his life. Those were well documented in Dark Side of the Ring, of course, and through other documentaries. I digress. This match was okay. The work was actually pretty decent at it. There were some inappropriate moments where the crowd was chanting something directed at Cowboy Bob Orton that would have been a homosexual slur. Let's put it kindly, directed towards Bob. And this wasn't just like grown men in the crowd or women in the crowd. These were children chanting this at Cowboy Bob Orton. and I don't know what to think of that.
It goes back to this show. Like, I think there's a few shows that I've watched, like retro style ones, and there's certain parts of the show which are always going to be problematic because them wrestling being such a time capsule sometimes of how society, of the extremes to which society will allow entertainment to get to, but also what they will tolerate. And during that period of time, so 99, so we're talking like end of 99, start of 2000, it was still fashionable to bash people for anything, really. And sexuality was the easiest one to do. And especially with wrestling fans, it was like the ultimate insult, because it's like, oh, you're going to make this insult. But it ended up becoming so normalized that, as you said, there's kids in the audience that are like, oh, to be like the grown-up wrestling fans, I need to call this person a slur. I need to insult them in this way because that is socially acceptable right now. What is really interesting about it, though, is the WWE and WCW were no different with like those kind of comments. So it really probably goes to show more about wrestling at that time and like what was acceptable and stuff. But it was still not. I think even in 1999, that was a little too edgy, I would have said at the time. Like 99 would have been like, oh, really? Are you going? Nah. But we would have seen John Cena just a year later, or like maybe 2 years later, doing the same kind of shtick as the master of thugonomics. So
yeah,
you know, it is very interesting, and there's no, and like watching the show, and if you watch it, you will be shocked by the age range of the voices and seeing them in the crowd and seeing the vigor and like the happiness with which they say it. It's just a different time, isn't it? Like it truly shows a different time, like of acceptance of anything. But But to begin with, this show should have had a fucking age rating. Like, Jesus Christ, you bring in Abdullah out there. That's an immediate, like, no people allowed rating.
NC-17 at the very least. This match, like I said, it was fine. I mean, there's nothing about this that I would say was any better than any of the other matches here on the card. But you do get to see Snuka miraculously at his age hit a Superfly splash for the win, which is
that was beautiful, dude. That was beautiful, and that's the thing is like these two guys. Orton wasn't like the fastest at the time, and I think it was a few years later that he went to the WWE with with his son, because like obviously now we know that Randall Keith wasn't that big of a wrestling fan during that time, so he wouldn't have even watched that show. Imagine that if you were Randy Orton and you're like, yo, my dad's a big wrestler, he's on the Heroes of Wrestling thing. That's why I don't watch him. This is why I don't watch any of his stuff at all. Man. But yeah, definitely an interesting time, and like I was very impressed with the work rate in this match. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean these two went and attempted to have a match that would have been of the caliber of what they would have in their prime. So yeah, I mean I can't fault them for that at the very least. And Fowl, this is where the show really it just puts the brick on the pedal and drives off a cliff here. We're getting to the end. Okay. We're backstage. Jake the Snake Roberts cuts a promo, and he's I mean, I won't say anything that he wouldn't have said himself, or that he's already said about himself at the time. He was not in the best of mindsets at the time, perhaps. And you can tell that he's clearly disturbed, or maybe I don't know. I can't say if he was intoxicated or anything at this time, right? But you can definitely tell that something was not fully clicking with Jake here. He's playing with his hair. He like throws his hair in front of his face like it's a mop, and then he like plays with it like over the course of this promo. He starts making these casino references about Jim the Anvil Neidhart, saying, if you want to play 21, I got 22. If you want to play blackjack, I got too many of those too. And that just comes across to me like you're just bad at poker, really. He
maybe he didn't even know it was a wrestling show. Casino magic.
Where's my chips? Yeah. He he says that he's a cheater is the point he's trying to get across, and that he says that someone who goes to a casino must accept losing, and he doesn't accept losing, but he does accept cheating and being bad at poker. is what we've gotten here.
Yeah, like it was a very confused promo. It felt more like a Warrior promo than like a like Jake the Snake promo, because what it felt like was very generic, and like no time had been put into it whatsoever. And as you said, it's probably like in the casino, he was like, "So this game is 21, right? I played 22," and you're just like, "What are you even talking about, Jake? What's even happening? What song are you quoting?" New one. I just wrote it myself.
You can't just like make a new game here. Like this.
It's like you guys can play blackjack. I play baccarat. Checkmate. And it's like, what? What are you talking about, Jake? But he definitely was like, you could like towards I think the end of it, he slurs his speech a little bit, especially when he's towards the end of that promo. So kind of similar to like Lou Albano when he kind of ran out of stuff to say. Lou Albano wasn't as probably intoxicated as he was. Like he might have had a few drinks here or there, but like Jake was definitely not in the mind frame to be having a wrestling match, let alone being going out there and be giving a live mic to do a promo with. And they kept cutting to the crowd, And there were women that were screaming for him because he's still Jake the Snake goddamn Roberts at it. So I think that might have played into it a bit as well, which is that a lot of those wrestlers had no kind of validation or no kind of like crowd for a long time. And as they've said before, that's for a lot of the wrestlers, that's the most intoxicating thing of all. The most addicting part is the crowd reaction. So if he just gone out there and sent some pretty shitty things, that never wouldn't really pop anyone, and he's like, oh, they're buying it. Like, I'm in, I'm back, baby. And then that's where the rest of the night comes. But definitely, like, I wouldn't. The thing is I would never sit here and make fun of someone going through shit because that's not fair. I will, however, happily make fun of the people that book those people because they're booking them knowing what's going to happen. And we had a similar thing years later with Scott Hall when he was booked by a promotion. They knew what he was like and they made something of it. They were like, we knew what he was like. We booked him and he didn't turn up. I think that this goes back to the booker guy, the guy who was setting this all up, who, again, big Jake fan, and probably thought, he's probably done worse in the day. He'll be fine. He'll go out there. He'll be all right.
That does seem to be perhaps the case here. From what I'm seeing, for the remainder of the promo, Jake was pointing at the snake in the bag, Damien, who's in the bag. He's pointing at the ground, talking about Damien, and then erratically he tells the cameraman to get his ass back up and pan back to him. He tries to get a DDT chant started to close out his promo, and he's like DDT, 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 and he walks away. Right, he starts to walk away, trying to get the crowd behind him. I think he probably in his mind he's like, man, there's 2,000 people here. They're probably going to be chanting right along with me, DDT, DDT. You really only hear one person, initiating or rather getting behind the DDT chant, which was quite disheartening and perhaps a sign of things to come here in this match.
I think that was Dutch as well, because they cut to Dutch at one point and like DDT, DDT. Like it is a very, like, you know what's really interesting watching those promos as well is, you know, when they don't do it anymore, but Impact used to do this thing where they'd have like an interview happen kind of like in the arena. So they'd go to something that looked very similar to this, actually. It's like a backdrop, and then they'd have the wrestler there talking, and then like they can see the crowd, and they get the crowd ready, and then they go back round to come out later on. Yeah. It looked like that. So you know what? They did do something. They influenced a whole generation of wrestling fans because they probably thought, we can do this, but better. We can do this thing, but way better.
Yes, I think that's an interesting take here on this match here, Fowl. The match that we get here, we will talk about this, I'm sure, at a pretty good length, and then we'll go home. But it's Jim the Anvil Neidhart versus Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake walks down to the ring, barely. He sets Damien the Snake down in the ring. It's still in the bag. But then Jake walks back up the entrance ramp and into the back. And I'm not quite sure why he does this, because then he just runs back down to the ring shirtless, right? I mean, do you have any theories on maybe what he was doing backstage?
Wheeling himself up.
Okay. Well, there you go.
I mean, just being honest, because the thing is you see him come out. So that's something you have to say, is that you're talking about pyro and stuff.
Yeah.
When you see Jake on camera come out with Damien, that's Jake the effing Snake Roberts. Yeah. I'm trying to keep this to keep the F-bombs down a bit, but that is Jeff. That is Jeff. Jake.
Jeff the Snake Roberts.
That is jumping Jeff effing father. That is, and it is because you see him, like, the shot is beautiful, like, and this is what I mean. Watch it for just the beginning of his entrance, and you see the camera pan up the way that it is, the pyros, amazing, and you're like, you know what, Jake, you pulled it out the bag. Not yet, that's later, but he's like, I'm like, that's cool, yeah, like that's really cool. Then he gets to the ring and he does the debut, then he just walks off, and I was like, oh. Why? But when he comes out, he is noticeably slippery. So so that's what I'm thinking.
That is an interesting point. I had not ever thought about that one. He does come down to the ring, and he walks around ringside, and of course, this is when we get the famed clip, the infamous clip of him. He reaches into the crowd. He's reaching for somebody or something, and a woman greets him hesitantly, and he then grabs her hands, and she's kind of, as you put it earlier, before we did the show, she's kind of in a bit of shock.
Yeah. It's that thing when you freeze when something's happening, which is either so surreal or so like offensive to you that you're like, is this happening right now? So
go ahead.
Yeah, so that's what I say. So when I was talking before, it's like she, as you said, she looks hesitantly at him. Her eyes lock with his. Then she kind of moves back a bit. He grabs her hands and then puts them onto his pectoral muscles. I say pectoral muscles. I'm standing here holding my pectoral muscles. I have no pectoral muscles. So up until now, I've never seen it in context. So I thought she grabbed him and went, oh, look at it. No, he then starts like moving her hands around in a circular motion over his, I'm gonna call them breasts because I got them as well. So over his breasts and kind of almost like jiggles himself with her hands. Yeah. And then with the biggest smile on his face walks off. Her hands then come down. Yeah, he's like, oh yeah. And then her hands come back and she kind of puts them down and looks over, still at him. Yeah. And it's like, what just happened?
she did have a bit of a wry smile, almost a laugh that just happened. I'm not sure if she's playing off of embarrassment or like nervousness or what, but it seemed like this was a deeply uncomfortable moment for her and for everybody else involved here.
Yeah, because like even when he like points at this, he does this like it is like that's why I feel like he was intoxicated, because there's certain things that when you do, if you were drunk, you do them, but then if you saw yourself do them later, you'd be like, oh my god. So like he even does like the wink and the gun to her, like he gives her like the double finger guns, like before he goes over, he's like, hey, and she's like, what? So definitely
Jake the Fonz Roberts.
Hey.
Oh man. So Jake gets in the ring. At what point Neidhart leaves the ring? I'm sure that he's at this point realizing that something's up with Jake. Neidhart proceeds to beat down Jake with clubbing blows, and he's got wrist control. Jake tries to go for a DDT, but Neidhart ducks out of the ring. Again, one interesting point that we need to bring up here about Jim the Anvil Neidhart is that at this point in 1999, he was trying to get back to WWF, and he was, according to the sources that I've seen here in researching this match, he did not want to lose. He wasn't going to do a job for Jake here tonight. So there was a little bit of a conflict here. Jake is obviously the biggest star and did most of the promotion leading up to this match. But Neidhart, he's wanting to go, over here. So there's a conflict. And now with Jake being in the state that he's in, it's not super easy.
I think that puts this match into a different kind of context for me personally, though, as well. Because Jake just saw this, I guess, as just another match. But Jim probably saw this as yes, this whole card's going to be terrible, but at least, and this goes back to that whole getting myself over. It's like, oh, okay, if I put on a good match with Jake, then the WWF will be like, you had a good match with Jake, and then they'll bring me back. You know, like, but if Jake just comes out there and does not want to cooperate whatsoever, is in no state to really perform, is the bigger star and probably going to win anyway with a terrible match, I would probably be in a similar position, be like, go back to Canada, I guess.
Chill out for a bit, you know? Yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll be like, I'm going to let him go and play with his boobies in the ring for a bit, and I'll just sit back here and drink some, I don't know, some maple syrup. I guess that's what Canadian people drink. I don't know.
I mean, this is going on Love Wrestling, so I mean, we can ask. We can
exactly. Ask what I should ask, actually, like to all the people that love wrestling, what is your favorite maple syrup? I'm not asking this just to like Spenny and stuff, and to Zach. I'm asking this to all Canadians. What is your favorite maple syrup, and would you drink it neat?
Ooh, all right. Well, Canadian audiences out there, if you are listening, definitely let us know here. Headlocktalk@gmail.com. Again, that's headlocktalk@gmail.com. What is your favorite maple syrup, and do you drink it neat? Perhaps. It's funny that you had mentioned that that Jake would proceed to play with himself in the ring after Neidhart leaves the ring, because that's kind of what happens next. Is that Jake proceeds to bring Damien out of the bag, and again, I'm being 110% genuinely honest here as to what this happens. This is documented footage, folks. I'm in no way, shape, or form slandering him.
We like to make a lot of fun around here, but this happened. This legitimately happened.
This part is real. He gets the snake out of the bag and then mimics it being a penis.
I was going to say one-eyed trouser snake, but you had to be all like
medical, you know.
Be all like clinical about it. I was going to say dog, but sorry.
He's playing with it, simulating, if you will. He then drops down to the ground. All right, and again, all this is happening in front of young children, young boys and young girls, while he's playing with his snake in the ring. And then he drops to the ground and starts licking the snake, which is even stranger almost, considering the recent actions he was taking with it.
Well, maybe, yeah, he had a few ribs taken out.
Yeah, pulling old Marilyn Manson, allegedly.
Allegedly.
That's the rumor.
Yeah.
But he the match is somewhat saved as King Kong Bundy then comes out to try and bring order to the match. And I would have never imagined King Kong Bundy being the type of person that would bring order to anything. Really. Neidhart then attacks Roberts from behind and is then who is distracted by Bundy at this point. He has Roberts in a sleeper hold. I think at this point Neidhart is simply just thinking, let this match be over. Like try and get Jake to the ground and force a pin on him for 3. There is a slight comeback here. Where
not with the snake though. Not with the snake though.
No, not with the snake. Jake tries to make a comeback and get another round of DDT chants started. Bundy then gets into the ring to try and help Neidhart beat down Jake. And oddly enough, Yokozuna comes out. So this match is completely fallen apart at this point. Yokozuna may legitimately been around 700 plus pounds at this point. From what's been documented in his career, he looked quite large. And somehow this now became a tag team match. Okay. Jake is just on the floor. He's collapsed. He's just a wreck. And we then get somebody else who arrives to the ring, who looks oddly like King Kong Bundy here, Fowl. So what's your mindset to this of what's going on in this match to this point here when this King Kong Bundy look-alike? Because we've had a lot of chaos here.
So there was two things that went through my mind as I watched it. I was like, first of all, they saw this match happen and they were like, there is no way in the world we are having a one-on-one match between King Kong Bundy and Yokozuna after that. Because, like, I thought that's the first thing. Second, I had no idea what was happening from that point onwards. Like, from that point onwards, like, obviously King Kong Bundy came out. I was like, all right. Yokozuna came out. I was like, all right. Commentary didn't seem to know what was happening. So you're like, all right. People in the crowd were as non-responsive as they were for the majority of the show. So I was like, what? And then as that happens, there's a point I was just watching it and I think I turned around for a second and then everyone almost went black. And then they showed like the end of the title card and I was like, man, I was actually quite disappointed because I was thinking, again, if I bought this pay-per-view, I know cards subject to change and shit. But if I bought this pay-per-view on the basis that I wanted to see King Kong Bundy go up against Yokozuna, the battle of the heavyweights, and I tuned in, saw Jake playing with his snake, I would not have been happy. No, I would have been asking for a refund. Well, I would have had to call the cable company and tell them that I bought it to start with. They would have laughed at me for about 20 minutes, and then I would have said, "I want a refund, please." You watched the whole show, yeah? Oh, sorry. Here's double your money back.
Here's free credits to watch your next pay-per-view.
Here's free credits to watch the next Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view.
Oh man. But yeah, this gentleman strolls from backstage. He's in a button-up shirt and slacks, black slacks. Who's looks a lot like a smaller King Kong Bundy. They refer to him as the mini Bundy, and they keep giving him all these like different names. He's never identified. We can only assume that maybe he's part of the production team to try and again bring some order to the madness that has happened in the ring.
I have looked into some of this. So obviously this particular show, there's loads of bits and pieces and some bits that haven't been confirmed, but allegedly that guy that's getting his ass handed to him, the bald dude, like constantly, he was someone from production backstage, someone quite connected with the organization. And when they realized things were going a bit south, they were like, we need to put the heat on someone. So they just threw him out there and went like, everyone just do the finish on him. And at least then like people will be happy that something's happened. The fact that he looked like King Kong Bundy, I think, was just a bonus if anything else. So they had a name to give him.
He's the mini Bundy. Speaking of Bundy in this match here, he gives no shits and he nails Jake in the head with a chair. We get back in the ring and Bundy and Neidhart are taking off Jake's shoes for some reason. Jake miraculously makes a tag into Yokozuna, who then cleans house, but moments later Bundy actually splashes Roberts, who is not the legal man, and we get the finish here for the 3 count. Quite odd. Post-match, Yokozuna does a Samoan drop on the mini Bundy, and we fade to black just randomly. It just cuts out. There's a lot of rumor and speculation as to why. I mean, I've heard things as crazy as Jake then went and allegedly started a strip tease or like it was doing something wild. I've heard things more realistic.
Is that where Kimono was inspired from? Is that where that ECW gimmick was from? Is that she was like I'm going to do a Jake the Snake.
She saw Jake the Snake Roberts on Heroes of Wrestling, was like, I'm taking that.
She was in the crowd? She was in the crowd, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was there. This I've heard things more realistic, like the production team just got frustrated and was like, we're done here, and just like end the show now. This match, this moment, this thing, it sucks. Chef's kiss, but it sucks.
But that's what's so unfair about this show, really, is like on paper it looks fine, but I think the time and the egos of the wrestlers that were involved as well, because they were all major stars back in the 80s, and they could have probably asked whatever they wanted for, and even some of them not even that long ago in the 90s were relatively big stars,
right?
And they would have all... I saw something really interesting. So I'm talking about this My World podcast, the Jeff Jarrett one that's come out, talking about TNA. And there's something that he speaks about when the first few people were coming together. And he was like, there were these massive egos. And also, getting the NWA, there were people that were part of the NWA booking committee that had voting and veto power over the championships. And he said, there were certain people there that would tell me, oh, well, I do this all the time. And, you know, like, I can draw up to like 200 people to a show. Don't you know who I am? And he'd be like, I tell them, though, that that's great that they're drawing 200, but we have the potential to draw like thousands. But in their mind, they had earned this job on the committee, and, you know, they've taken all the knocks, taken all the crap. So these guys were those guys, weren't they? And you could see these are the people that had unfortunately fallen out of favor with major promotions, but still felt like they could draw like a massive main event house if any of them were on the card. And they all learned real quick that didn't really mean anything.
That wasn't the case.
Yeah, and like all that they did was they all very, very wisely took advantage of a very rich fan. And that's what happened. And that's what a lot of people said that AEW would have been at the beginning. But the difference has been is that I feel like he's got way more control than this dude who just booked a bunch of wrestlers, put them in a hotel somewhere, gave them like an unlimited amount of drink, and then just went, go out there and make magic in the casino, and then left more than likely immediately. Like, I would not want to be that guy, though. Like, he could have, in a different time, though, he could have probably made almost like a thing out of this being so terrible. Almost like a kind of a room kind of vibe to it. And he could have been going around the country showing this pay-per-view to people in cinemas.
Like Tommy Wiseau's The Room?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. This could be the room of wrestling. You could have a whole like promotion that's just terrible wrestling, but they were too terrible and it got too real too fast, and no one will ever take that risk ever again.
Yes, this as you just alluded to here, Fowl, this would be the first and the last Heroes of Wrestling show. The plans for them to take this on a touring circuit would not come to fruition. And again, I got to go back to to kind of what we said at the beginning. This show was propped up as being a return to wrestling being for family values, right? And instead, this is what we got here. Before we head on out, Fowl, I'm going to ask you two questions. First off, I want your final thoughts on the show overall. But secondly, and perhaps most importantly, I would like your speculation as to what would have happened. What would you have done, or what could you have seen happening going forward for this Heroes of Wrestling promotion had it not been this being the last show?
Had it not actually happened.
Had it not actually happened.
So first of all, like, final thoughts on this show. It does have, and I would say legitimately, one of the worst wrestling matches of all time. In that Shiki, just in the build to it, But yeah, that match with Sheik and Volkov versus the men from down under, whacking bushes all over the place. That's what they should have done. They should have gone to Jake and whacked his bush. Anyway, that was a very smooth snake. But like, I think that the the legend of this, as you kind of put earlier on, the legend of this show makes it worse than it is. I think that it's a very average nostalgia show that is unfortunately, like, even though there were some really bright spots on the show, it was just brought down by ego. And it was brought down by the ego of some wrestlers who didn't realize that they were an average sized fish in a very small pond, and it didn't really matter what they did. And that, yeah. So overall, I'd watch it again. I'd watch it again. It's not that bad.
That's very kind of you to say.
I'm very,
very generous.
I'd watch it again with a few beers, a few laughs, not as many as were being consumed in that, like in the Casino Magic place. But I definitely, because it is a fun show to just watch and almost think like that could have been the end of it. That could have been the end of independent wrestling. That could have been the end of anyone else ever taking a chance on pay-per-view wrestling ever again. Because they would have been like, you seen that shit? I don't want that anymore. And also just the balls of calling it Heroes of Wrestling. Such grandiose plans for it, and knowing full well the level of hero they were going to get, like, isn't ever going to be. And also, very, very, very last thing is, it was called Heroes of Wrestling. A lot of heels on that show. Should be called Villains of Wrestling.
Villains. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it would have sold more if it was Villains of Wrestling. No.
It was 1999, yeah. NWO were hot as whole hell. Could have been like, these are the anti-heroes of wrestling.
And Austin, the height of Austin, and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it could have brought him over. I'm sure he would have popped down for a beer. Like,
maybe so.
And the second question.
Yes, where would you have what outcomes could you have seen if there was an actual touring circuit of this Heroes of Wrestling show?
So first of all, obviously, we would have the longest reigning Heroes of Wrestling. Oh my God, just realized it would be the How Tag Team Championships. So the How Tag Team Championships would go to... Like, how did I miss that? But the How Tag Team Championships would go to the Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. Obviously, like, they would hold those championships for at least a year. And then who would be the women's? There wouldn't be a women's division whatsoever. Like, they wouldn't. There just wouldn't be a women's division, because Sensational Sherry would do all the things that any woman would do in that particular thing. Anytime they had something to give to a woman, they'd give it to her, and they'd just be like, "That's your gimmick. You're a valet." And I think that they would be like a light heavyweight style championship, and I think that what's really, really interesting is there's loads of this where I see that TNA saw the mistakes of what they did and fixed it. But I definitely see like a light heavyweight style championship, like something that you could have, like Two Cold Scorpios. You could have people come in that were big deals, go up against that Francisco dude, and like he would be the champ, definitely, and they'd build him up. And your heavyweight champion for all time would be Yoko goddamn Zuna, because they would be like the world's heaviest athlete, and that would then trump Big Show, wouldn't it? So that's what they'd do.
So would they get like competitive eaters, like competitive like eating people to like go and take on Yokozuna,
just like Butterbean every week.
Yeah, Butterbean. Oh, there you go. That'd be fun.
And Jake, and actually, what would happen as well? You know, the commissionership.
Yeah,
there would be a power struggle, and Jake would come out on top.
Oh, really? He would beat Captain Lou to the commissionership.
No, Lou would leave because he'd see what like craziness it was. He'd be gone, and then they'd have to quickly scramble, and it would be Jake.
He's like, I'm getting out of here. I can't believe I'm the commissioner of this. I've worked nearly 40 years in the business to get to this point, and now this.
Exactly.
Oh, gosh. Fowl, this has been absolutely brilliant. A fun way to start my day, and a great time and a great chat with you here, sir. I'm glad that we could have a chance to watch this show and talk about it.
Always.
Yeah, man. Tell you what, where can people find you out there on the internet?
Oh, okay. So, hello, I'm Fowl Original. You can find me on youtube.com/Fowl Original Wrestling. You also find me on Twitter @Fowl_Original. Also find me on Instagram @Fowl Original. Also on the internet, on the website fowloriginal.com. Check out my Instagram. I'm doing drawings at the moment. That's where most of my stuff's happening.
Yeah. You do a lot of memes too. You're very good at the memes.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I like that. My memory is one of my most like. I forgot what I was going to
say. Man. Well, I'm very happy that we got to do this today. Like I said, it's always an honor and a privilege to get to speak with you and to have these fun chats. And I knew that when I was going to do this last little series here for Headlock Talk, that I needed to have Fowl Original, and I needed to make sure that we got to talk about this show one last time, at least.
It's like who will I put through this pain with me? Who?
Then my mind went to birds, and then it went to fowl, and then I was like, here we are.
I know. And then who. Yeah, that's all it is. That's all it is. I'm just a canary in a cage. Despite all my rage, I'm just a canary in a cage.
There you go. One for your guitar there in the corner. Well, like I said, I appreciate you so much for putting up with this show and doing this show as well. It was a blast, and yeah, thank you so much for Fowl Original. I am Texas Gentleman Tanner Pruitt. Y'all take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.